You mean
about
the
8
visiting
years
kids?
ago.
The
Huh?
visiting kids complain.
Visiting kids, yes, yes. So we're asking for that one to be replaced. And then Millington Pool furniture, like I said,
Gil, before you,
Sure.
before you get away from the wrestling match.
yeah.
Last year, when we had all that influx of a bunch of kids becoming wrestlers that we didn't have prior, it was brought to my attention that we needed another mat. And the former Board of Commissioners approved that expenditure. But there was something about, they wanted to have it with the Kent County emblem and stuff on it.
Correct, to
So-
match our other one.
So you didn't get one last year?
No,
You put that on hold, and now it's in this year's budget?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
'Cause I knew the issue of that wrestling mat had come up last year, because we had like 60-some kids. We used to have trouble having a dozen, now we got 60-some. Which is a
It's a
good thing.
good problem to have.
That's right, absolutely.
So, and then the pool furniture, like I said, every other year, we either do at the community center pool, we ask for furniture, or Millington Pool and Bayside Pool. Currently, right now, or as far as our pool furniture inventory, we have no pool furniture inventory, so we have no extra, pool furniture at this time. And then at the community center, it's just replacing the tube slide that's out there. This was submitted in 2019. It did not get approved at that time, so I thought I would throw it back in there. And it just would be an updated new feature that we would have out there in our pool to kind of give pool users something new and inventive to come to, since we haven't really replaced any of our slides since we actually, the pool was installed.
You have problems with one of them?
The tube slide, every once in a while, we have problems with the water, which is the water trickling down. So we have to close it down sometimes until we can fix the water. But other than that, and with that one, the lifeguards, we train them very well, because when the kid comes off of that one, they don't realize that the water is deeper than what it is. We make a lot of saves there, because the kids come off and they think that they can come off of that slide and kind of stand up, and they can't. So lifeguards really pay attention to that, and that's something we really train them about when we do our lifeguard training. So they really are aware that the kids coming off there might not be able to swim over to the side.
Right.
Once they come off that tube slide. And if you've never been down it, it really does throw you out there. And kids don't really realize that, but
Sounds like a challenge.
Yes.
Anybody that hasn't needs to go out there and go down the
Yeah.
tube slide.
That'll teach them how to swim.
That's the way they taught you to swim, you got thrown in the water.
Get on there and it's over your head, it'll teach you something.
So if a new pool slide was approved, would you replace one of them, or does that?
yes, I'd replace that tube slide.
With one just like it, or a chain?
A different one. We were looking at one for the 30, like a wraparound one, take them down.
All right.
Okay, the next two categories are joint programs between Public Works and Parks and Recreation, which is why you see the two of them sitting there. And we're gonna start with POS, which the state primarily picks up the largest chunk of that. I mean, we only pick up 10% of these projects.
Okay, so the highlights, Jill handles it with the consulting, so she can touch on that one.
So yeah, for the consulting, we've hired a consulting company, which is Shore Strategies, and once every 5 years, we have to have a LPPRP plan that goes into the state. So she, instead of it being a big chunk at the end of 5 years, and we're working real hard to get this out by the 5th year, we're gonna start working in increments, so that every year we're gonna start working on something, so it's not very task-oriented when it comes down to actually getting it out on the 5th year. And with this consulting, is completely funded by Program Open Space, which is the Department of Natural Resources. So the county doesn't pay anything for this service.
So then under capital, the first one, Betterton Beach, it's replacement of the boardwalk. The stair project that was done to go up to the pavilion was done, we had some money left over from that budget, so that's being rolled over to replace the boardwalk itself. That's that Trex boardwalk that's been out there for years. It's starting to break, trip hazards, it's not really ADA compliant. So what we wanted to do was to convert that to a concrete boardwalk. Basically, it would be stamped to look like wood and stained, so it would look like a weathered wood. But that would make it more ADA compliant. It'd be easier for our beach cleaning equipment to get across it, and have water space. So it would basically follow the same path that it does now, plus the connection that comes up to go over to the stairs going up top. So that, what's shown here is Project Open Space money that's being diverted to that. And then we also got LPPI money for that project. That project is out to design right now. Basically, they're modular type systems. There's two different types of vendors that build these things and anchor them in, and then the concrete blocks go in place to create this boardwalk. It's a similar project I did up in Salisbury, where we did where the creek comes into the park area there. They redid that after they had to do the retaining wall back with the tiebacks, so they had to tear up the concrete. So when we put it back, it now looks like a boardwalk, but it's concrete for long durability.
I would imagine that it will also, hopefully, talking about the ADA, will help with the wheelchair ramp that we,
Oh, the MOBA mat?
MOBA mat.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
The MOBA mat will, that's going through the process that we're doing, and obviously I'm not gonna pull the trigger on that till we get this other thing going here. But, yes,
The walk, the stairway that goes up to the pavilion, we did get that done.
yep, all done. And then the one thing we'll finish off. with
I know we
another-
had we had postponed it something, maybe it was because it was so busy up there or something. We put it off for a while and.
Well, there was timing, plus we had to get design done. We had Jay Selcox do the design on that.
Good.
The next item on capital is Still Pond Park. This is one that's obviously been talked about for years, of what do we do about it? Restrooms, pavilions, that sort of stuff. In looking at that and not really knowing what everybody wanted to look at, and there was always the issues with the erosion of the beach and everything, that the first step in this project would be to do a design concept. In other words, have a park planner come in and say, you know, talk to people, see what interests are, what they'd want to do there. There's always the back and forth, because you get a lot of boating public to come in and anchor in there, and then they can come ashore, maybe have restrooms there for the boating public. All those kind of concepts we needed to really nail down before we go into building something out there. So that's where this Project Open Space was. We were aware of the requirements of giving that to us from the federal government, that we're supposed to develop it as recreational. But this would be a study that would pull in, you know, insight from the residents, the people that would want to use that site, to find out what really is essential to put out there. Is it restrooms, or is it pavilion, or is it whatever else would go out there? So that's what that 30,000 is set aside for. 3,000 would be the 10% share of it. So we haven't gone anywhere with that one yet. It was a lower priority while I wanted to get Betterton Beach going and the.
Shame that's such a out-of-the-way place, because it's an absolutely beautiful spot in Kent County, down there, that's Coast Guard Station.
So,
We had even talked at one point, maybe when we first got it, I don't remember when, but of just putting a pavilion down there, but you don't have bathroom facilities there. You'd have to depend on porta toilets like.
right, and the problem with that in a remote area, those porta potties don't survive very well.
Yeah, right.
So it's the back and forth on, obviously, put our restrooms out there. We've got the issue of having to maintain them.
I think some of the residents would just soon nothing happen down there. We've heard from some of them, because they're afraid, you know, because it is such an out-of-the-way place, that, you know, things would take place down there that you really didn't want to take place, so. But it's, you're looking out over the Chesapeake.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things is just the locals that know it and use it rather than everybody knowing about it. But that's the idea with a park planner. They would come in and say, you know, try to figure out what would be potentially from getting input from people and say how we approach this thing and then make a decision going from there, what you want to do. But I agree, if you had, with the park being remote like that, you'd probably have to have some kind of a gated system to close it off at night so that you don't have people coming in using it for all the wrong reasons. So that's still out there. It's fun.
And you also have to bear in mind that the Coast Guard still uses that for
That's right.
4 months, 5 months out of the year.
Yeah, we'd have to coordinate with them on that too, so.
They
And-
still have that housing facility there,
Yep.
plus they use that pier and that fuel dock.
Yeah, and then there's the piers for the boats. There's a couple boats tied up there. There's some relationship with that.
Echo Hill.
That Echo Hill, they
Yeah,
keep a
Echo
boat
Hill.
down there, that little makeshift pier.
Right. So, all those things to be considered, but that we'd have to look at. But I've been focused on, with the time we have, to get Betterton, Wharton Park, the ball field enhancements, some good funding on there. And that's broken down in the backup with the capital forms. You'll see all the things. Toll Park, that there's definitely an interest in restrooms, aside from people using the park, that it's a bypass of the 301 tolls. So we're getting a lot more people going up 213 and get outside of Galena. It's like Junior has to go to the bathroom. You got the park right there. So they'll get used for that. The other thing is the discussions, and I want to throw that in, the letter that we got from Galena. They are pursuing grant funding from the state MDOT for extending a bikeways path from Galena down to Georgetown. It's broken into 3 phases. There's 2 phases that are getting you to Georgetown. First to Toll Park, second phase to go to Georgetown. And they're getting funding to be able to do the concept design on it and do the actual design for the extension to Toll Park, as well as another extension to Olivet Hill community, for people to move in that direction to the Olivet Hill access.
And they're
So-
gonna come in and present at one of the upcoming budget work sessions. Because they are a partner agency, they're gonna present this request.
I met with them in terms of how they would proceed with our consultant on that. So we decided that the concept plan would look at how to get all the way to Georgetown, because you get the issue which side of the road to be on. Because it's a lot easier maybe to go down on the, I'll call it the right side to get to Toll Park, but then you gotta literally jump over to the other side to get down the rest of the way to Georgetown. Because you can jump in on Queen Street, that goes down through the yacht basin there, and work that out. So those are all part of the things. The question that you'll need to deal with is they're requesting $20,000, half of the match share for doing the concept and design plan for that. That letter I got just the other day, and Shelley's got it too.
Right, I reached out to Galena to ensure that they would come in and present the request.
So that'll be a budget request. I don't have it in
Yep.
my system. but-
Right, that will not come through, that's not on anything that you've seen today, that'll be from Galena.
But along that line, with those services we're providing down there.
The outside agencies come in.
With Toll Park, lower ball field, park benches, restroom, pavilion, improvements, architectural design stuff, to improve the park because that additional volume of visitors that we would anticipate. So that's where that funding is coming from. And then Orem, the field lighting retrofit, we talked about that earlier, switching the ball field over to LED lighting upgrade. So that's the program Open Space. Any questions on those projects?
No?
Okay.
The next one is, just as a quick refresh, for 2 years in a row, we got $1 million for local park and playground infrastructure. And that Parks and Recreation bid that out, and all the towns could put in bids, as well as the county. Projects were prioritized, and it was decided what would go where. We are not getting any new funding this coming year, so this is the residual from the previous 2 years.
followed that.
We did, there wasn't any new LPPI money
I
for.
remember the $1 million we got
Yep, we got it twice.
twice.
And we're not getting it this coming year, but the projects that are still ongoing from these the previous
years.
2 years
Uh-huh.
are the ones that are in the budget.
Now,
So what you're seeing,
but we have, we still have the money to pay for it.
Right,
This is,
right.
these aren't new
Correct.
financial
right?
issues.
And that's why you see zeros, the money's already been
I
received.
got you.
I'm new to this, but I like that.
Works better,
It
doesn't it?
it looks a lot better.
I think we ought to go ahead and vote for it.
The struggle for us was, we got the $1 million. Okay, here's all these projects, and it's like, okay, I'll work on these, and then Myra comes back and says, oh, there's another $1 million, so there's all these other projects.
So,
So-
like, again, and I can't,
In those, okay, sure. In those $2 million, we gave some of it away to the towns.
Yes.
correct.
Um,
And I can't emphasize enough that these projects as well, Mike in particular, but Department of Public Works has been working very hard to roll these out because we have timelines. So there are other things that have not been addressed. And we've had this influx of money comes with an influx of projects. That's wonderful. Let's get all this stuff done. But it takes a lot of staff time.
So, what you see there, Betterton Beach, I talked about before, that's the additional funding for the boardwalk. And Myra had a couple benches in there. We got some benches in Wharton we're gonna do there, and I like the recycled type benches to put up. So we'll see where we are with the boardwalk, and then what money we got left over, we can put some benches in. Then Wharton Park, the park, that's new dugouts, bleachers at Orem. And they had the old bleachers in the back there behind the backstop. They were falling apart. Well, they've all been removed and taken away, so, well, obviously,
You
there's
could
more
have
safety.
sold them like they do stadium seating.
Do you think we get pieces from?
Really, right. As long as they've been up there.
Could have an auction.
So, we'll be putting aluminum ones that have the safety fence in the back, so you're not kids aren't falling off the upper rungs and everything like that. And then the restrooms will be redone. A lot of that's the plumbing, the fixtures and everything all need to be done. Probably paint the inside, but make it more nicer there. And then replacing the dugouts. Problems with the dugouts, they sit low now, with all the buildup, so it rains and all the mud goes into the dugouts. So we'll be doing that. Dan and I were looking at pre-manufactured ones that come and plop them in, but he has some ideas in terms of replacing those dugouts. So Orem Field will be our trophy field, if you want to call it, with the lighting and upgraded everything there. So those are the projects that are rolling over into FY '24 and covering that. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you again.
I'm basically done. One of the things I just wanted to touch on too, Commissioner Fithian, remember we had a discussion about the on-call stipend back then? a couple years?
Yes.
And that you wanted to revisit that in the budget?
Well, the issue was brought up about, was it, your department, the water and wastewater, it was brought up by the previous board.
Yes.
And it had to do with the people that you have on call for water and wastewater.
Right.
And they
They get a $40 a week, they're on call for a week, they get $40 for it. And that amount has been the same for almost 10 years.
and it was talk about increasing that amount.
Right, and you said, and we've said best leave it for budget. And then Shelley, I think, had reached out to everybody, because there are other,
Because there's other people on call
Exactly.
too.
so, I hadn't put anything in my budget, because I figured that would be a global conversation. But I'm hoping the commissioners might consider that. I think what we're looking for is changing, going from $40 to $100 a week. So, and I know Shelley had suggested bringing Jim into the discussion on it from HR perspective to see what he's doing. So I think that's the next step, have some discussions there. He has some other different ideas that maybe we can look at it, but we'll be coming back in terms of that.
Now, when they're on call, they're still working with us and they're still getting their paycheck.
Right.
But they're limited to the fact that they're on call after hours and weekends and stuff, and they're
Correct.
sort of confined to to stay home.
And they've got a computer, the computer.
And for
monitors
that, they
the
get this additional stipend,
Right.
plus their pay, but they get this additional stipend, which has been about, like you said, it's been $40 for years and years.
And when they do come in, they are paid overtime.
Right.
So there is,
They get a 2-hour minimum if they come in. But
Right.
a lot of now with our systems, as we improve these pump stations and the SCADA that we've extended with the fiber out there, they have a computer, the computer can tell them what's going on at that pump station, the correct measures, and then it can make an informed decision whether they have to go out or whether it can wait till tomorrow. But they've got to have that computer with them and if that beeps, they've got to respond to it because it could be something where everything's failed, generator's gone out or whatever, and they have to respond to it. So it's that awareness, and you can't be, down at the beach with your computer and then find out you have to be there. So that kind of offsets the captivity that they've got to be by hanging around home. So, something to consider. All right, well, I'll be talking to Jim
So
about
when you do that, does a certain person stay on call for like a week or?
it. We have two people that, in water wastewater, we have two people that go on call. We have the operator that handles the plants, and then we have our utility techs that handle all the pump stations. Plus, if we have a difficult situation, let's say we have a stuck pump in one of the pits, we can't get out, from a safety perspective, we can bring the other person out. So we have two people that are on call for that week. So they would each get $100 for that week for that awareness that they've got the computer and everything like that.
And that's for a whole week.
Yep, whole week.
Yeah.
And then, remember, we added another personnel, so we had the rotation, because we had a big problem because of hiring people, because it got to the point where you were on call like every other week, and people were saying, I don't need this kind of, so we couldn't keep people. So now, we've got it now where there's almost a month spread between having to be on call. Makes the job a lot more palatable for people, so. All right,
I think that there's probably some other agencies in the county that have folks on call. And it might be nice to figure out exactly what the impact is.
And John, that's exactly why we put it off. It was brought to our
Right.
attention with the prior board, and that's why we said wait till the budget, because we didn't want to leave anybody out.
right.
There's more than just water and wastewater.
Most of them are exempt employees, so they don't get paid overtime. So that was one of the factors, but we did an analysis. We certainly, I know I've mentioned it to Jim, and Jim says he has some ideas of
Good.
ways to look at it, or, and we can,
So in the session that we devote to personnel, we will certainly cover that
Mhm.
issue, and we'll have that information gathered for you, for all, department-wide.
It'd be good to look at it, because
Mhm.
when you are on call, I understand, because where I come from, you're totally restricted. I mean, holidays, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Your hands are tied, and you can't divulge or be involved in certain things,
can't be at that Ravens game.
and you can't. So I understand the hardship. So we'll take a look at it.
I have that stuff I put together for you, I'll just give it to Jim, that we collected in response to your question here.
yes, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen,
Yes,
for your
thank you.
time.
No, thank you, thank you. Mr. Bill Mackey, are you up? Carla?
Good afternoon.
How we doing?
Pretty good. How are you all doing?
Good.
Coming around the last bend here in the marathon. So Carl and I are here this afternoon to present a budget to you. It's 2.6% less than last year. We've been fortunate to be able to close some contracts out during this fiscal year. We won't be renewing our contract with the Maryland Environmental Service because, hooray, we have a deputy director in Public Works, and the stormwater management review that has been paid for by contractual labor through planning and zoning is going to be handled by Public Works. I think I was at another meeting where I said I'm outside of Public Works, I may be the happiest person to meet Dan Mattson, because he's going to do a lot of stuff for us, so. And
Dan's gonna be doing the stormwater management.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Good, good. Yeah, that was an issue we were dealing with for a while until we, with some of the people were building houses, and they were being held up because of stormwater issues and stuff. Now that was when Blizzard retired out.
Yes.
When he retired, he used to do it all for us, and when he retired, we were without somebody. Well, it's good. Thank you, Dan.
And the second contract is, we've finished our contract with the ZoneCo for the comprehensive rezoning. Actually, that contract came in $60,000 under what we expected, so there was some savings, and that savings is reflected in this year's budget. We do have a few asks. They're much smaller than the savings. We found that our open position for a planner has been difficult to fill. I think a lot of people have found that positions are difficult to fill. We would like to expand our GIS subscription. It would actually benefit a number of departments, but it will allow current staff to do a lot more things. So instead of, since we can't find someone to fill a position, we want to keep trying with that position, but we'd like to expand some of the services that we receive through GIS and automation to sort of pump up what we can do. Carla's going to go into some details about that. We're also asking for 2 people to go to the MACO conferences. My understanding is long ago, this county used to send a fairly heavy delegation, and then after budget cutbacks in 2008, that went away. So I've had the privilege to attend those, and I think Carla and I have swapped back and forth a few times, but it would be nice, I think, for both of us to be able to attend along with other peers here at Kent County. And then under capital, we're asking for 3 tablets. That sort of links together with the GIS request. Our goal is to have our inspectors be out in the field and not only be able to do inspections, but to immediately enter data into the tablet. They get back to the building, it downloads into the system and updates, again, making them much, much more efficient. That'll work hand in hand with some of the GIS things we're asking for. And then last but not least, we have a leased vehicle. If you had noticed in the beginning of the presentation, there were 2 cars for planning and zoning. We've only requested the 1 to be replaced, so we're going from 3 cars to 2 cars. We don't think we need 3. So there'll be a savings there, I think. Or someone else will get to use the car, so either way, someone else may need it. So, and I want to give Carl an opportunity to sort of talk about what the GIS is going to be able to do for us. We have GIS, but what we currently have is fairly limited, and this is a big upgrade. It'll be a 3-year commitment, about $35,000 each year.
So this is, right now we use individual licenses for accessing the GIS software, and this would be going to an enterprise system that would allow us to provide access to using the GIS software either through an online portal that we would set up or through the actual software, kind of desktop seats through any county department that would want to use it. There would be unlimited desktop uses of it. There are, I think, 50 of the ArcGIS online licenses. Just now we're working with Public Works. I think, Mike, you're using 2 of them, I think, and you need at least 3 more. And each one of those is individually paid for, but under this larger subscription, it would give us access to what they call extensions, which would allow for additional data analysis. We've had something that came up last week, that if we had those extensions, we could have done it in-house, and instead we're having to reach out to Salisbury University for the assistance. It would allow some expanded capabilities with the CATE program. So it's something I've dreamed about for years, that the Kent County might finally reach this point, and I'm excited to put it forward to you, so.
And we're a big supporter of it, because we've been wanting to build a GIS system for water, wastewater, to be out in the field and be able to pull up the plans and even pull in like a Google Earth area, so you'd be able to locate things based on trees or house locations and things like that. It'll be a great advantage to our staff out in the field.
And we wouldn't have to worry about kind of juggling who has access to a license, because I think the licenses that are included with the fee would cover as many users as we would need.
And it'll take 3 years to put this together?
No, it's basically a contract, so but the agreement with Esri is that for a minimum of 3 years, you would have this system, and then it's assumed that you would continue to use it ongoing.
I got you.
So the service would be available rather quickly.
Right, so it's kind of like, yeah.
We're just agreeing to them for 3 years.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like a 3-year term, and then you would renew it for additional each time. I think it's a 3-year term each time.
So it's like a software with licenses, and
Yes.
it's a 3-year contract, and then you renew it again if you.
Do you know,
Now, do they provide you with the most up-to-date
Yes.
software
Yes,
updates?
so it keeps, it covers what we currently pay an annual maintenance fee to keep updated software and access to support and all of that, and that is included. It provides, within that, the fee for the enterprise system is, you can use access, any county employee would be able to access the online sort of self-paced training or training webinars. If you wanted to do an instructor-led class, that is still a cost, or there is a reduced fee. They give you a discount because you've got one of these enterprise licenses, so,
So it actually comes with training and maintenance agreement.
yes.
And this is really the company that's the world leader. So
okay, that's what I was gonna ask, is, do you know of anybody else who uses it?
they're like number one, and number two is really little.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
most governments use this
most
system.
governments use the Esri
okay.
software, yes.
It sounds like a time and money saver in the long run for
In the long run,
a lot
yes.
of employees, for sure, so.
And it provides for accuracy and
And I think we're excited by the prospect of, right now we do relatively simple maps for other departments. And because of their simplicity, I think it'll be really easy for us to kind of give sort of basic training, and they can then generate those maps on their own. Economic development is one that we work with frequently. You know, they just need a simple, select this parcel, put a title on it. It doesn't take us long, but it would certainly empower them if they could do it on their own.
And if you've ever gone to the county's website, Parcel Viewer, where you go to the county's map and you pick out a parcel and tells you zoning and water usage and all that, that's through GIS. That's actually an outward-facing piece of GIS that gives the public information, primarily around zoning and information for development. I know that Jamie uses it for promotion a lot, to show people what's available. So those kind of capabilities would be expanded greatly.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
And Bill, everybody else could learn from you. You come in here with a $60,000 savings, and then that's pretty work.
Thank you. It's just my turn, sort of like Scott has his, he can't really help it. I mean,
Oh,
we're at
kidding
the end
me.
of our cycle, but
Well.
thank you. I'm glad it lines up with other people, makes it
Yeah,
work, so.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rosemary? How are you today?
Great, how are you?
Good.
Good afternoon. It's hard to see. Okay. Our budget, our request to the commissioners is just slightly, like a 5% increase more than last year. The hard thing about the LMB's budget is that we're blending and braiding funds from the Children's Cabinet, from MSDE, and the commissioners to be able to operate as a department and to fund programs within the community. So sometimes we're prioritizing, which program will be funded just under the Children's Cabinet, or will the cost be split a little bit between the commissioners and the Children's Cabinet? And we try to kind of keep them in their column, but depending on the cost, we will blend and braid. So we have a decrease in salaries. That is the removal of the Transportation and Housing Coordinator from the LMB. We had been funding that entirely through the Children's Cabinet Community Support budget. And that was like a planning grant that we proposed, that those are meant to be temporary, not to go on indefinitely. And we have, so that's why you see the savings in salaries and benefits. Slight increase in operating to help cover some of our ongoing work, and a more substantial increase in programs, because that community support line that had gone towards the planning is now going towards programs that will be implemented by other organizations like Menary's Dream Alliance or the Health Department, et cetera. And we had capital last year. We will not have capital next year because we are installed and happy in our office. So on the next page, you can see that broken out a little bit more, how we were funding the items. The local care team, that's entirely funded through the Children's Cabinet. Community support, that is also Children's Cabinet funding. That is a category that covers planning or any other small grants or trainings, activities that we do that are more outward-facing. So if we do, you know, a trauma-informed training and we invite lots of different participants from the school or other organizations, that's a community support expense. Same for updating our community plan. When we work with a consultant to do that kind of work, that comes out of community support. And so we are asking for some of those duties to be more focused from the commissioner's funding of that line item as opposed to the Children's Cabinet. So there's a reduction in overall expenses because of the position change, and you'll see a slight increase in the commissioners, but that's really because more of the programming is being absorbed by the Children's Cabinet. So it's getting kind of convoluted with how things move around, but.
I understand what you're saying, I think.
Great. The Brighter Day Project, that's a new initiative that we're doing with the local care team. We got a Rotary grant, and when we have families that come to the local care team, there's often kind of small miscellaneous needs that, you know, a particular agency can't cover, like social services can't buy them a new backpack or send them to a special like summer camp or things like this. And that's what these funds have been established to be able to help some of these families. So the local care team will receive the application from social services, from the school, from a provider, and they'll review that application together and be able to make those purchases for the family.
Is that, did I understand that that money is coming from the Rotary Club?
It is.
It is.
It's a small grant that we wrote this year, something that we wanted to try out. The state used to fund, we called it flex funds, and they took it away because with the recession and everything, it's been gone for a long time, but we really wanted to be able to reestablish that in Kent County, at least for small items, to be able to really help families. Sometimes it's, you know, a family had a child who had an outburst and they broke a bunch of stuff, and so they need a new bed or they need a new phone or something like that. And then those are pretty much, are there any other questions about those programs? So budget highlights. We were level funded by the state this year. We did not get any extra funding through the supplemental budget like we did last year. But the state did allow us to include 5% admin costs for the local care team, so that helps out a little bit. We've talked about community support, and we see that increase with the Children's Cap funding. All of that was moved into the grants that we're going to be doing around creating safe and healthy spaces for youth to gather and for the after-school program. So we see that increase in community support from our request to the commissioners, but it's really very similar to what we spent last year in terms of planning and community support activities, and we do not have any capital. The programs for next year, this is the fun part. Last year, we had our youth-led program design and implementation. That will be going out to bid soon to actually do what the youth worked to design this year, and that is designed to improve school climate and mental health in the high school. Healthy Families Home Visiting, we will continue to fund that, but we are expecting to be able to pull away from that gradually. They are now eligible for federal funding, so we will be able to reallocate by FY25 those funds to new programming. Menary's Dream Academy at the middle school, that is a program that we started with Menary's. the contract with Maneri started this year, and they've been doing really well with the work that they're doing at the middle school. They're actually going to take all of the girls from the middle school to Echo Hill in June for a retreat and conflict resolution intensive workshop, which I think is going to be really awesome. And the Youth Spaces grants, a variety of, these are the awards that we talked about before. Hip Hop Time Capsule is a paid youth internship for high school students that Washington College is facilitating. The youth-led mural project with Choptank Talamato